Today on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking to the Kid Rudy Lockhart. What is your earliest memory as a wrestling fan getting into that industry?
I can never remember when wrestling was not a part of my life. So very, very young age, I would say 4 or 5 maybe. I think I was introduced to wrestling by my older cousin who was getting out of wrestling. So I kind of inherited his fandom. So he gave me all of his action figures, his t-shirts, his DVDs. And I think from there, it just spawned into, I don't know, a fandom that just never it was a phase that never left. I think wrestling with a lot of people, it comes in phases as a kid, and then you kind of grow out of it. And then just one of those things that I never grew out of it, I don't think.
That's actually a really nice passing of the torch. Was there any particular action figures or performers or anything that he passed on to you that really stood out to you that you were just a really big fan of?
No, not necessarily. I mean, this would have been at the tail end of the Ruthless Aggression era.
Okay.
Put it in perspective, I'm 21. So this would have been 2006, 2007-ish. So John Cena was my hero then, right? Just because of the nature of it, right? He was my Hulk Hogan. And but I think as a kid, I was more so just drawn to the, the theatrics of pro wrestling and the entrances and the characters and the personas more so even than the wrestling itself. I remember some of my very earliest memories are just performing entrances for my family. So they would all gather in the living room, and I would have the theme songs queued up on a CD, a burnt CD, and then I would just one by one just come out through the entrances as all of my favorite wrestlers like Batista, John Cena, Jeff Hardy, all of them. So no particular wrestler other than John Cena. Just the spectacle of it all, I suppose. It just kind of captured my imagination as a kid.
That's actually pretty awesome. I had an old spinner belt from that era that when you press the button, it would play one of 6 different theme songs.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So that's a young age to be doing replica performance. Have you always kind of been in, somebody who wanted to be in the spotlight, somebody who wanted to perform, entertain people?
I'd say so. I've always kind of enjoyed that aspect of it. I'm a shy person just in general, but I'm not someone who craves attention or necessarily, but I do enjoy performance art, I guess you could say. I was a theater kid throughout high school, so and always enjoyed using that as a creative outlet, even through my teenage years with wrestling. It kind of transformed into that, into doing backyard shows for the family, and so there was always throughout life there was always some element of that, I guess you could say. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were a shy person, and I'm assuming that that's also somewhat present tense as well, as we never really shed it completely. Did you find that to be a bit of a challenge getting into an industry that is almost entirely based on being in front of people and interacting with fans and putting on a show?
Yeah, definitely. It is the greatest form of exposure therapy in terms of the only way to overcome things are exposing yourself to them, right? When you're performing and the first few times you go and wrestle, I found the hardest part was just the entrance itself, because you can't prepare yourself for being stared at by 300 people all at once. You know what I mean? It's a weird sensation. It's a weird kind of feeling. At least when you're wrestling, it's kind of the attention is divided between who you're in the ring with and whatnot. But when you come out for your entrance, it's all eyes on you, and it's a totally surreal feeling. So totally puts you out of your element, your comfort zone. But even so, just first breaking in, just being in a locker room with a bunch of complete strangers and totally intimidating, especially a lot of these guys who you've been watching throughout the years, and now you have a relationship with them on a professional level. And then even too, just nothing can prepare you for the merch table interaction with the fans. That's something else that you never would ever expect, getting into wrestling is you have to turn it on when you're in the ring, but when you're at the merch table too, you also have to turn it on, and you have to be on, and interacting with people. It's an adrenaline rush of its own completely.
See, I was actually going to ask you about that because when you're in the ring, you can at least focus on your opponent. You can focus on the match. But when you're at the merch table, it's just you and the fans.
Yeah.
However, you are, from what I've experienced of your career, you are a baby face. So I'm sure you have a lot of people that do want to approach you, especially little kids. Yeah. And that can't be as easy to hide from. That being said, though, it is still valuable. Did you have an opportunity when you were growing up to like go to actual independent shows, or were you mostly just watching professional wrestling on television?
No, I would go to all the independent shows locally here. And I was like, because I was so shy, like I would be intimidated to go up to the wrestlers to like ask for their autograph or ask for a picture because I was so shy and timid. So it's funny to be on the flip side of that and to see kids who I can tell are timid and shy to approach you. It's totally weird because you're like, you have to remind yourself who you are in that instance. Like to that kid, you are that larger than life superstar. You are that hero. So a kid will be naturally shy to approach you or nervous or timid. So you have to do your best to make them feel comfortable in that instance.
That's actually a really nice sentiment to hear, that you seek out the children that you think might be a little bit more standoffish. Maybe they're closer to the merch table, but they're not approaching. Did you have an experience like that when you were a fan? Did somebody reach out to you and kind of lead you along that way? Or is that something that you came to yourself when you were just like, listen, people are at the show for this reason, and I need to make sure that they go home with a special memory?
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's like, that to me is the most important thing of what we do. Like getting into wrestling, that's not what I would expect, but like creating memories for those kids, like you are that hero to that kid in that moment, even if it's only for one night, right? So you have to be that role model, and these are like moments that they like cherish for the rest of their lives, like memories that they'll always hold on to, right? So you do anything you can to like make that moment special, whether it's like letting them hold the belt or like giving them stickers like for free or whatnot, or anything you can do to make it special for them,
In all actuality, it could be a full circle moment. One of those kids that you interact with might down the road be in the locker room with you in that same position that you were, intimidated by all the people around them. And they might think, well, there's Rudy. He was nice to me. He can be like almost like an olive branch. Mm-hmm. Let's turn back the time a little bit. So you're a wrestling fan. You're checking out WWE. You're taking in whatever independent shows that you can. At what point in your life does that like switch flip and you're like, you know what, I don't want to just be a fan. I want to now start looking into this world. I want to start training. I want to get involved myself?
It's all I've ever wanted to do. And then like as I got older, it became a like, okay, how realistic is this? What are the chances of it working out or being like, of me being successful in it? And there was like in high school, like grade 12, I think, like I've always had those dreams, like, okay, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to train to be a wrestler, and then I'm going to wrestle and pursue it and see how far I can get with it. And then, once grade 12 hits and like you see all your friends like start going to university and getting accepted into like universities and colleges, and then like going to pursue like more legitimate career paths, you kind of get like second thoughts. And like I definitely like started questioning everything, and like I got into a few universities here with scholarships that I chose not to pursue because I was like, okay, wrestling is all I've ever wanted to do my whole life, and it's just like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it now while I'm young and give it everything I have now, all my effort, all my time, and I just decided to go full force with it. So
where did you actually do your training?
So I reached out to Troy Merrick with Cobra Clutch, 2022. Would have been like the year after I graduated. That was the deal with my parents. They were like, yeah, there you go. That was the deal with my parents. They were like, okay, if you're not going to go to school, you have to, and you want to choose to go to wrestling school, you have to get a full-time job immediately and start paying us rent. So I was like, okay, all right, that was the deal. So I started working full-time, and then I reached out to Troy like immediately in regards to training. And then it was the following summer is when, after graduating, is when I started training with Troy. So 2 years ago now.
Troy is genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met in the industry. How did it feel going into wrestling school those first few times? Did it feel like this is where you belonged? Was there some trepidation? Did you have any challenges initially, or was it just like right away you were like, this is where I was meant to be?
Oh, totally. It was like more emotional than anything because it was like I felt like literally my whole life had been leading up to this moment because it's like the day that I've been waiting and thinking of every single day of my life was like, all right, training to be a wrestler, day one of wrestling school. So when it finally happened, it was like totally like surreal. If anything, I was nervous about not if I would be able to do it in terms of like the physicality or the like being in shape, but it was like my size was the biggest thing. Was like I was scared that I would be kind of like shunned or like brushed aside or like told I couldn't do it because of my height or because of my size. But like Troy, and I didn't know Troy up until that point, but Troy was totally welcoming and like that was never concern worth having, you know. He treated me like no different than anybody else, right? So
In all actuality, your size might have worked to your advantage because it really does seem like when in the audience of one of your matches, people really want to get behind you because they want to see you overcome the challenges.
yeah.
Did you have any sort of peers or fellow trainees in that class that helped with motivation or keep you encouraged, or that just you kind of had as like a sounding board when you wanted advice or something to just help you with your improvement overall?
So it's actually funny because I ended up training with my best friend, my childhood best friend, Dayton Cameron, who also wrestles around here locally. We met in like elementary, grade 1, grade 2, I believe, and just instantly bonded off of wrestling, right? And it's the same thing for him. It's just all wrestling's all he ever wanted to do, and that's what like brought us together. So we were like day one together. Like he's like the closest like person I have in not only wrestling but like in life, right? Couldn't ask for a better scenario to like step foot into this like super intimidating world, but to be able to have comfort knowing that you're able to do it with your best friend, right? So like every day, like training there and back, being able to like use each other as like
Sounding boards.
exactly, right? Yeah, you said it best.
So how long were you training before you had like your first opportunity to have a match or to get into the ring of in any sort of capacity, really?
Had been training for I'd say 2-3 months on weekends, and then I guess the first time we'd ever stepped in the ring would have been a battle royal spot, just a quick like 30 seconds in and out. So that would have been like 2-3 months after initially training, and then we had the following day we had a small spot on a there was a documentary being filmed with Jennifer Crawford, who goes by Moon Miss locally. Jen won MasterChef Canada, actually. So CBC had been filming a documentary on Jen. Actually, they initially started filming the documentary day one of wrestling school for us because it was like they was part of the documentary was showing the Cobra Clutch training facility because it had been located at the time on Jen's property in Jen's barn. Anyway, so that was a totally other crazy thing. Was like first day showing up to wrestling school and CBC's there with cameras and they're filming you. Totally unexpected, but it was just kind of a weird opportunity that kind of fell into her hands. But anyways, they had put a little small show together in the fall of 2022. It was just a very small, like closed off, like friends and family wrestling show. And anyways, I was able to have a match on that. So that would have been my first technically like one-on-one match, proper match. But even then it was very short. And then after that, few months off, still training, and then had a proper match on a UCW card in the winter of 2023 in front of like a good 200-300 people. I would consider that my first like match. And then shortly after that, we were off to Los Angeles to train with New Japan for like 3-4 months. So
How did that come to be? You're
um,
I'm sitting here thinking 3-4 months to have your first match, even if it's a quick battle royale spot, is fast.
It
And
is.
here you are, only a few months after that, in Los Angeles training for New Japan. How
Yeah.
does that happen?
Yeah, so yeah, crazy. Like, there's a lot of things that happened. Like, I've only been this is like 2 years in wrestling. A lot of amazing opportunities have been like just blessed upon me. I don't know how. I honestly don't know how half of this stuff like comes to be. It's almost like it's just like it's one of those like I'm living in a simulation type moments. Like so many of those. It's like, how does this keep happening to me? Just all these amazing opportunities. But no, that is crazy because like that was part of the New Japan Pro Wrestling Academy, which is their school that they were running out of the LA dojo now. We were part of the very first class. So they initially put out the post saying that they're looking for applicants. There was like very little information regarding the program, like what it was. Like now they've been running it for a few years now. So now it's more well known and it's more prominent. But like this was like the initial like first class. We're testing this out to see how it goes. And Troy actually sent the link to the application in the group chat of our training class. So it would have been me, Dayton Cameron, Gabriel Savage, Dominic Warrior, and Oni Bjornsson. He sent the link and he was like, if this was opportunity was here when I was your age, I would jump on it. So I was like, so he was like, just fill out the application because you never know, right? So I looked at it and I was looking at the application and I was like, this would be cool, but I was like, we're never gonna get in. I was like, we'll never get accepted. So I just about just like was like, thank you, Troy, but like whatever, right? But I was like, what the hell? I mean, you never know, right? So I filled it out anyways, and I didn't even like. I kind of like. There was a lot of criteria within the application that I didn't even like fill out or wasn't even like eligible for. Like one of the things they requested was like they wanted promo shots on a white background, and I was so like nonchalant about it, thinking I wouldn't get in, that I didn't even. I just sent them promo pics like that didn't match what they were looking for, but I just sent them in anyway. I was like, whatever, we're not gonna get in, right? So I sent it in, and then like 3 days later, I get an email in all Japanese, and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I just thought it was spam. But then I looked at it, and the email was like New Japan, and I was like, no way. In that moment, like life stopped, and I was like, holy. And then it was like we had been accepted or whatnot, and then because my Cameron had also filled it out and been accepted. So, and then from there, it was just like, okay, how realistic is this? Is this a possibility? Can we commit to this? We did, and we invested a lot of money to do it, because it's like you pay for the tuition because it's a school, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to pay for the tuition, but like they don't cover flights, they don't cover accommodations, like they don't put you up, they don't cover anything, right? We invested a lot of time and money into that, and we went about that process. And I mean, it was like the best decision we could have made. It was an amazing opportunity, incredible learning experience, and like it was worth every penny.
Wow, that's taking a bet on yourself, really.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the craziest thing that's happened to you so far in your wrestling career?
I would say so, because like not too many people can say that they've done that, especially around here, right, in the Maritimes. And I think it's one of those things, like in the moment, like in doing that, I don't think we realized the like gravity of it, like how big of a deal it was until afterwards we did it. And then it was like, yeah, that was a big gamble. That was a giant investment, but it was just one of those things where it's like, when I started wrestling, I told myself, I was like, I'm never going to say no to any opportunity. And I think that's part of the reason why like I've been able to have a lot of success so early on in my career, is just be hopping on every single opportunity. Like every opportunity I'm asked to like go somewhere, or I just say yes to everything.
Wow, that's actually awesome. Did you find that it benefited you when you got back from the training, now when you're actually back home and working and moving around a little bit and getting bookings a little bit more regularly?
Yeah, like that's the two biggest ways in which it helped us. Was like, yes, it was, we pretty much like, because it's such a great training course and facility, like I'd say we made about like 3 years worth of progress in like 3 months, it seemed, with like going through that program, like as being like complete rookies to wrestling, and then going and doing that, and then And then coming back, it's like the experience we had in the ring, just we were able to learn so much in such a short amount of time. And then also the notoriety that it gave us coming back, saying that we've done this. It's like it's one of those things not a lot of guys can say that they've done. So I think that played a big role in like us getting a lot of bookings so early on in our career.
So you're back now, you're getting regular bookings, you're performing. What would you say is your favorite match that you've had so far?
Anytime I wrestle like Justin Newhook, that's fun.
I can't imagine he goes easy on you.
No, and that's what's great, you know? I work like pretty much like, well, everyone I get a chance to be in the ring with is like larger than me. So like no matter what, it's like that David versus Goliath. But like I've been able to work with a lot of larger opponents, including Justin, and Justin just, I don't know, he's the most fun. I think he takes advantage of the fact that like of the size difference, and he's willing to like have fun with it. You know what I mean? Because it could be very easy to just kind of do a typical like, you know, big guy, little guy type of matchup that I do a lot. But Justin's willing to like let me shine, and you know. I guess that's the best way I could describe it. But
you ever get worried that because of that size, you're kind of always going to be typecast into that type of match, that you're always going to do the David versus Goliath, and perhaps to have to work a little bit harder than everybody else to get something a little bit different?
It pretty much like describes it, like typecasted into that role. And I totally understand it because it's like the easiest thing to do. And the last thing I'd ever want is to make anybody look bad because of my size or the size difference. But like I said, I believe that like with Justin, like he's smart and experienced enough to like know how to make it work, but like exciting at the same time. That's the best way I can put it. In terms of other opponents, like I love working with Hollywood Cole because we're a bit more able to have a bit more of a level playing field type match. Obviously, he is larger than me, but it's still like able to have a bit more competitiveness, and he's always willing to like try new things and go and put on like the best match we could possibly have.
Are there any goals that you have for your wrestling career moving forward? Any places that you would like to wrestle? Any opponents that you would like to see facing you across from the ring anytime soon?
I would love to travel more outside of the Maritimes, and going forward, like next year, it's definitely in the plans to expand the horizons a bit more, because like I've been very fortunate to get like a lot of work in the Maritimes, and I'm very blessed for that. But it's like I never want to like feel like I'm complacent or spinning my wheels, kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I want to just continue to keep learning. I just want to keep getting better, keep learning, and I understand like the only way to really do that is to keep traveling and to get in the ring with different bodies and learn from people who have different perspectives from like elsewhere in Canada, say. In terms of like wrestlers to get in the ring with that I haven't gotten opportunity to work with yet, like in the Maritimes, like Moondog Dylan Davis, Lil Blay, Covey Christ, a few names that I've yet to lock up with.
Any dream opponents? Not limiting ourselves to the independent scene here, but regardless of how realistic, any dream opponents that you would absolutely just love to square off with?
I don't really have like a dream opponent per se, but like I'd say maybe like Brian Kendrick, because like he's in like that short list of guys that I study like very regularly, just in terms of like a style that I can emulate, and he's like still active, right? And I actually just met him at a show a few months back, and he was like the coolest guy, the most chill dude. Like that would be an amazing opportunity someday, you know.
Yeah, it's still possible. I mean, anything can happen in this industry. So you get to go away from wrestling, because I know that it's probably a big part of your life, but it can't be 100% of your life. What do you do to just kind of unwind or recharge the batteries or take advantage of a day off if such a thing exists?
Yeah, I don't know. It used to be a thing, but I don't know. I don't have much balance in my life anymore. I just feel like everything's wrestling. So even when so I guess like my hobbies, my downtime would be working out, but I do that because of wrestling, so that don't really count. When I'm working out, I just feel like I'm working, like, because it's a wrestling thing. Like I like watching. Like I'm a big movie guy, so I guess movies if I have time nowadays. Like
Any particular movies that you would say don't get enough recognition that you would give your thumbs up to?
I like old movies. I love all movies, but I'm a big like old movie guy. So like I don't know, black and white movies. People won't watch movies just because they're in black and white. Like or I don't know, silent movies. I tell people I watch silent movies. They're like they laugh at you, but I'm like I don't know. I don't. Maybe those ones don't get enough recognition. It's like people like if it wasn't released like after the '80s, people won't watch it because it's like too old. It's like you know.
I actually think that silent movies are obviously not recognized as much anymore, but they're so valuable in that the performances in those movies are almost entirely just like body movement, facial, like there's no actual verbal communication. And for something like a wrestler, obviously that can be a benefit because you're telling a story with your body more times than when you're not. But how did you get into silent movies? That's like you said, it's not around that much. So it's not like somebody's just like, hey, come over and check out this silent movie.
When I was younger, I got into like really into old horror movies. So like the old black and white like Universal monster movies, and then it was just kind of like a gateway into like discovering a bunch of older movies and like subgenres, and then like dipping your toes into the silent movies, and then realizing like, oh, these are actually like awesome. You know what I mean? Like there's not like they're just as good as like any other like current movie nowadays, right? It's different, but yeah, you said it. I couldn't have said it any better, really. Like what you mentioned about like just the physical acting of it, I suppose.
Are you a big horror fan, or was that just the movies that got you into silent?
No, I'm a big horror movie guy, like nerd of horror movies.
Who's your favorite movie monster then?
I don't know. It's like picking a favorite wrestler. I couldn't tell you.
Everybody's got a favorite wrestler. They might just not admit it out loud, but they got one.
out of the like, I'd say out of the classic Universal monsters, I think I'm a Frankenstein.
So before we close off, I do appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. I just want to ask you, is there a piece of advice that you would like to float out there to a young performer who might be in the shoes of somebody who's considering the industry, or even if you had a hypothetical chance to go back and talk to a younger version of yourself that you would want to instill on them?
Don't be afraid of being yourself. Like, be you. Be unique. Be true to yourself. Like, don't try to be something that you're not, and embrace your uniqueness and what makes you different. I find a lot of people feel like they have to, this isn't just a wrestling thing, but just in real life, like they feel like they have to conform to like fit in. But like me with like my size, like being so insecure about my size in life, and then also just in terms of like my career in wrestling, it's like, well, as soon as you start embracing what makes you and unique, that's like the key to like true confidence. I wouldn't have had the success I've had so far in wrestling if I didn't embrace who I was and be unique, because I understand that like I stand out because of my look and how I present myself. Like that's everything, right? Like I know I'll never be the best wrestler, but if people come away from a show only remembering like 3 or 4 guys, if they remember me just based off my look alone, then I've won, right, in my mind. So anything you can do to stand out and make yourself unique is going to be your best asset.
Perfect. And just lastly, could you let people know where they can find you online if they want to drop you a follow or see where you got upcoming bookings, just to stay up to date with Rudy Lockhart?
The best way to find me is on Instagram, at Rudy Lockhart. That's where you can find me, like all my upcoming appearances and whatnot, my dates. Right now, primarily in the Maritimes, hopefully out west next year.
Wicked. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.